Hi, this morning I've been working on Toby's Music and Sound, also known as M&S Systems, MC602. And I guess officially this will be part 2 of this series on repairing this, and I'll put one of those little pop-up things up here that you can go watch part 1 because it might be interesting and or informative. As a brief recap, Toby sent this in because he had no FM tuning. Everything else works fine, intercom, AM radio, door chime, all great. No FM tuning whatsoever. And I demonstrate that in the first video, so go and watch it. In the end of the last video, I said I was going to order some parts for the tuner, and I did, and those parts came in on, I think it was on Friday or Saturday. We needed to order some integrated circuits for a special application. All of this is covered in part 1, so you should watch that because I'm not going to go through it again. So the parts came in, and this morning I was in the right mood and I figured we'll work on Toby's set and see if we can get something accomplished. And because I like to jump back and forth a little bit, let's see if we did accomplish something. That was 92.3, which is the strongest FM station here in the greater Chattanooga, Tennessee area. And his FM tuning now works perfectly well, just like it's supposed to. I did a lot of research and reading of the 3 data sheets, which I go over in the other video, and also of the schematic, which I found on the last page of one of the data sheets, which I also go over in the first video, as to which of the 3 integrated circuits would be most likely to be the source of the problem, because I was pretty sure that was going to be the case. I didn't have a really clear idea of which one would be most likely to have caused the problem, and as I set this up this morning, I was still sort of waffling around as to which approach to take on it, and then I had a really good idea. My really good idea was this. Oops, maybe this, or possibly this. This was featured in another video a few weeks ago, and again, there'll be another pop-up thing somewhere up here that lets you go watch that if you're interested. This is a binder full of technical information, schematics, and other things that came from someplace. It covers all music and sound intercom systems. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So I decided maybe we should check our newly acquired reference binder and see if we can come up with any kind of idea. At the very least, I was hoping to come up with an actual schematic for the actual tuner board because I thought that would be very helpful. In looking through this, of course, these are all divided up in tabs. There's a tab for an MC500. There's also a tab for an MC800. And then we have to go backwards a little bit. So here's a tab for an MC100 103. And there's a tab for an MC170, and there's a tab for an MC300 350, but somewhere between this one and the next one, there's no tab for an MC600. Wouldn't you know it? That's always the case. However, as I talked about in the other video, since all the MC series were all made around the same time, it would be very unlikely that Music and Sound would have designed different and separate tuner boards for all the MC models, because why would you do that? Design a decent tuner board, you can incorporate it into all your designs, the cost of manufacturing is less, it makes your life easier, and everybody knows everybody likes to do what's easy. So I decided that the best course of action would be to look at the sheets for the MC300, MC350, because those were probably 2 of the most popular models, because they're not the low end, they're not the super high end, they're right in the middle, and that's what most people buy. The very first page right here is a sheet for the schematic of RF PCB for models 300, 350, and 800. See, the tuners are used in multiple models. And the nice thing about this binder and a lot of these sheets is these were actually used by some actual human being, technician, repair shop guy. And there's all kinds of really interesting notes and things written in here. Probably as he worked on these and were solving problems, he made notes to remind him. So the next time he's got one in, he has a jump on what it takes to actually fix it. I looked through the schematic for this tuner. There were some notes here, but it didn't really apply too much to what I was looking for. And I decided I would leaf through this just in case possibly something was out of order. This is the display board. Don't care about that. That's my marker, so it's easy to find the page I was looking for. Here's one for primarily the main board, and up here somebody wrote tuner C MC500. So see, the tuners are used in lots of different models. here he drew something in orange. It's a route of a circuit. And that doesn't really apply to what we were doing. But then I noticed, when I was looking at that, I noticed this. Handwritten note on the back of the page before it. The back of the page before it is actually for the switchboard, so he just scribbled when he was thinking about it. And we've got 3 good notes here. We have this one that has a star, which means it probably refers to something on another page. If AC goes over 24 volts, unit will buzz. Always good to know. Here we have in a box, Q9 shorts out, no audio, 2N5460 in stock, which means either they kept them in stock because they needed them all the time or they were easy to get. And down here, it says lightning in red, as it should, because anytime you talk about lightning, I guess red is appropriate. And it's got a circle around it. And it says here, bad U, and I couldn't tell if it was a 3 or an 8. I decided it was a 3. Causes no FM. Also, scan locks up after pushing button once. AM okay. And then M&S number 830022, $12.72 each from Music and Sound. That sounded very much like the problem we have. Now, we didn't have any lockup after pushing the scan button thing, but you know, it's lightning, causes no FM, blah, 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 and that was about U3. So at that moment, the choice was obvious. We were going to go after U3 first because that seemed like the right thing to do. All right, so we're looking at Tony's AM/FM tuner board from his MC602, and here are our 3 integrated circuits. There's one here, one here, one here. They are labeled on the board as U1, U2, and U3. U is the component designation for integrated circuits on these models apparently, and it's 1, 2, and 3. So U3 is this one right here. This is an LM7000, and for a brief recap, what is an LM7000? It's a direct PLL frequency and synthesizer for electronic tuning. According to the fellow who wrote the notes, if you have lightning damage, which would typically be lightning that maybe comes down your FM antenna, then this is the chip that could get blown up. Since these sets have a dedicated pair of FM antenna terminals and a separate AM antenna terminal, if the lightning only comes down the FM wire, I suppose possibly the AM is spared. Don't really know. It's always luck of the draw when it comes to lightning because you never know what's really going to happen. So I went ahead and replaced this chip. Here's the old one right here. Of course, there is no physical damage. I have people comment all the time to me when I talk to them on the phone about, oh, I looked at the board and I didn't see any burnt or blown up parts. Modern electronics, if it's gotten that far along, you've had a problem for a really long time. These kind of chips don't usually technically blow up, like physically fail. They just fail internally. So I replaced that integrated circuit. Also, as a point of interest, this is a fairly compact board with lots and lots and lots of components on it. It's a double-sided board, which means that you have circuit traces on this side and circuit traces on the back, and this chip has about, I think there were 5 or 6 vias through the board that connect circuits on from one side to the other side. So you have to be extremely careful when you remove a chip like this, because if you rip the via is like a pipe between the 2 sides of the board that connect circuits together. If you don't get all the solder out of the hole and you pry it out of the hole, you're going to rip the pipe out of the middle of the board and you broke your connection, and then it's never going to work. It was a little bit of a challenging board to work on, and I have really good desoldering equipment. So if you were doing it by hand, it's going to be kind of tricky to do. Anyway, I replaced this chip. I put it back in Toby's Master Station, hooked up the antenna, and voila, FM played. And that's all there was to it. It's very simple. I did do extra work on this board. Previously, I replaced all the capacitors just for good measure. And the other thing I decided to do with Toby's board, because if it is lightning damage, we do not know for a fact. However, that would be likely based on the information we have on hand. It seemed to me that it made the most sense. If you replaced one because it got damaged from lightning, then you should, by all rights, replace all 3. Because while the other 2 seem to be fine right now, if they were shocked in some way because of the lightning, I've already got the parts on hand and I don't want them to fail 90 days from now and then there's another problem and Toby has to send it back again. In my experience, customers never really push back against the fact that you possibly over repaired it. I don't think there is such a thing, but some people use that term. So I replaced the other two integrated circuits while it was here. I have done other previous checks on it and so forth, and everything else seemed to be fine. So it was most likely the one chip for sure, and we hopefully dodged a bullet on any future problems. The last bit that we have to do is we have to put our metal fence back on the board like this. It sits on there like this. How do I know it goes this way and not this way? Because when I took it off the board, I put a little red dot right there, and on the board right here I put a little red dot to remind me of which way it sat on the board, because you know it's been about a week or so and I've already fixed a lot of other intercoms in that amount of time, and yeah, it's easy to forget which way something goes around, I suppose, and I didn't take a picture of it or it's not in the other video, so you know, that's what you got to do. So we'll snap that back on, and we need to solder that back in place. So you can watch me solder for a second. And these boards are going to require a bigger soldering tip. So we're going to pop this one out, put it back over there. Remember, don't grab the hot end, hold it by the handle. I'm going to put it in the green one. The green one's a great big wide soldering tip with a lot of thermal mass, which means it gets hot and it stays hot longer, because these boards, as it turns out, are actually fairly decent circuit boards. And they just want to suck up the heat like you wouldn't believe. And when that happens, then it makes it harder to get a good solder joint, because everything's cooling off all the time. Oh, that's much better. And especially something like this, because not only is the circuit board pulling heat away, but the metal fence is pulling heat away also. So you're trying to heat up the solder pad, you're trying to heat up the leg of the metal fence, and since the leg of the metal fence is connected to the metal fence itself, you're heating up some portion of the entire metal fence, which makes it tricky. For those of you who think, oh, I wouldn't bother, I wouldn't put that back on, you know, if you're the kind of guy that when you fix your car, you end up with 4 extra bolts and a washer and you got no idea where they go, you should put this back on. It's not a lot to do. It only takes a few minutes, and it is there for a reason. It is blocking out interference, or possible interference I should say, from outside sources in the master station. Now, when this was on here originally, it was soldered not only on the bottom side, but it was also soldered on the edge on the top side. And that is sort of a time-honored RF shield way of doing it, because you have ground connections on both sides of the board, and the RF shield is normally attached to ground because that's how it functions the most effectively. So you should take a second, or maybe 10, and duplicate the way it was done when it was made. Just like that. And that's the way most RF shielding is done. This is the cover that goes over it. And in the plastic bag, see, plastic bag, tip for you guys. Tip for people who don't do this kind of stuff very often. If you're taking something apart, especially if you think it's going to be a week or so till you get the parts in that you need to fix it, and you have to keep track of RF shield and the can lid and the 2 little machine screws that hold it all together, cover it all up, Put it in a plastic bag. If you put it in a plastic bag, it's less likely to fall on the floor and get lost or get thrown away accidentally, because why would you throw away a plastic bag that's got 2 screws, an RF shield, and a cover in it? You're not. If they're all separate on the workbench, you might throw the screws away by mistake, or they fall in the rug and you'll never find them. But if you put it in a plastic bag, it's not going to get lost because it's in a plastic bag. Just like that. What do you think? All right. So that's the conclusion to Toby's Music and Sound MC602 tuner repair. And I'm very pleased with the whole fact that we were able to sort out what the problem was. Thanks for the help for whoever it was, a technician or repair shop guy, whoever it was that wrote the notes in the binder pages to clue someone in. See, his effort to do that paid off, not only for him probably as he learned how to work on problems with these sets, but now for future generations of us who are going to work on music and sound systems. It was a successful repair. And we also know now that the tuners in MC models are all fundamentally the same. So if you have this problem, then it can be repaired, and it'll be easier and simpler the next time because we have extra parts on hand because I ordered extra and we already know what to do. So I'm sure there'll be 99 other mystery problems with the MC series if we decide to work on them, but we'll deal with those one at a time. I hope you found this interesting, and maybe for someone it will be helpful. If it is, give it a thumbs up on YouTube because that helps us just a little bit. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.